Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and today it is another of my 2023 NFL prediction series, and it's the Miami Dolphins. Make sure to thumbs up this video, subscribe to the channel, help me grow, and watch all the other videos in this series. Miami is an interesting case. They were a team that was consistently inconsistent. They have a really good foundation. I think they have a really good coach. But there's just so many questions, and it starts and ends with who's your quarterback. Is Tua ever going to play again? Is he ever going to learn how to tuck his damn chin so his head doesn't slam off the ground every time he gets touched? Take a jiu-jitsu class or a freaking judo class, something. Take something. Take anything. Why is your head? What are you, a toddler? Anyway, really scary stuff, though, in all seriousness with Tua. Are you going to just ride that out with him? Are you going to look at Tom Brady? There's just a lot going on there. How are you going to figure out a way to make room if you're going to have Tom Brady on your team? Are you willing, as Mike McDaniel, to sort of give up the structure of your offense and what you've really been building for this team? They don't have a first round pick in this draft because, number one, they traded one of them away for Bradley Chubb, which hopefully in the long term works out for them. They paid him substantially. And then the other one was for tampering in relation to Tom Brady. So, do you just get Tom Brady to be like, well, there you go, worth missing the pick, the first round pick that we could have used to totally get somebody who would have been really good for our team because we need stuff everywhere. Some places, some really key places, like maybe the offensive line to keep our quarterback from dying, stuff like that. So there's just a lot of questions, and I'm hoping that in this video I can answer them. Did my best. Let's get started. So let's start with the head coach, Mike McDaniel, who was brought over from San Francisco, I believe it was. He was San Francisco's offensive coordinator, brought into Miami to sort of bring that Shanahan offense that's going crazy all over the NFL, to bring that over to this team. They made a couple of moves during the season. Preseason, Tyreek Hill, what a difference maker he turned out to be. Really turned around the entire offense, really. They got Teron Armstead, who when he was healthy was a great contributor. And then during the season, getting Bradley Chubb, getting Jeff Wilson. There are some really good moves that they made. When we look at the offense, man, this offense was on fire with Tua. They weren't great at running the ball, but they really didn't have a number one running back. They were sort of supplementing it with Mostert and Wilson and Ahmed, and there was not really a true identity in their running game throughout the season. But their passing game was off the charts with Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Mike Gesicki sort of fell out of favor with this team. They sort of franchise tagged him because they had the money, I guess. So he's going to be going off to a different team. So maybe they might need a more traditional, George Kittle type tight end. If they didn't tamper, Michael Mayer would have been right there, and he is perfect for that role. But, whatever. So is the so goes the cheating scandals. But their inability to run the ball really affected them on third down. You can see that there. It is really the glaring statistic in terms of their offensive rankings. They're really ranked really high in every other category. They are top 10, some top 5. The worst ranking here is 12th outside of the running attack and the third down percentage. And third down percentage and running attack are really tied together quite a bit. Those third and shorts, your chances are you're turning around and handing the ball off. And if you can't get those 3 yards on third down, that's not a good thing. So they need to improve the offensive line. They do have a lot of spots on the offensive line that they can improve on. And they can get a true number one running back if they so choose to do so. I think it would be in their best interest to do so, because I think what we saw from San Francisco when they actually had a true number one, whether it be Elijah Mitchell or now with Christian McCaffrey, that offense just works so much better when you do it that way. Despite the success that this system has had with those day 3 running backs, you have to figure out a way to get a true 3-down back who can be effective running the ball, passing the ball, has great one-cut ability to really execute that zone blocking scheme effectively. And then when you move to the defense, it was almost the exact opposite story. They were not great. They gave up a lot of points. They were good against the run-ish, but against the pass, they were just so vulnerable to big plays. A lot of that comes from playing in that conference, of course, but they need to figure out ways to improve on that. They need more depth in the secondary. They did trade for Bradley Chubb, like I said earlier, which does help with their pass rush, which was middle of the pack this year. But as it progresses, as Chubb gets more integrated into this team and Jalen Phillips begins to come along a bit, maybe you add a couple depth pieces in the front seven, you can improve on that third down percentage and the red zone percentage. And the turnovers. 30th in turnovers is terrible. That's how you keep your team staying on the field. When you don't force turnovers and you're not good on third down, you're going to get scored on quite a bit, and you're going to put your offense in a position where they have to be super dynamic. And that's why when Tua went out and they went to less effective quarterbacks, they just weren't really able to keep up on a consistent basis. They almost stole the game against Buffalo. I think Buffalo took them very lightly. I think everyone kind of took them lightly that week, and they almost found out a way to stole it. But then, overall skill and ability ended up coming into play there, and Buffalo ended up pulling away. But the defense could be a focus for them. But I think the focus should really be on acquiring depth, because when you pick up an injury, they don't really have the depth to replace it. So you want to have solid depth, I think, on the defense going forward to help out these numbers. Because I do also think, because your offense is so dynamic, the other opposing team's offense is going to be running and gunning on you. So you might be more vulnerable to be giving up big plays and points. But that's a good way, I think, to cut it down, is to help keep guys fresh in the pass rush, in the secondary, without compromising at the skill level so significantly. So their biggest issue coming in is they're $16.2 million over the salary cap to start. So they have to figure out a way to clear out some cap room. And there's not a lot of guys, luckily for them, that they'd probably be all that interested in bringing back. I did bring back Jeff Wilson at $2 million because he knows the system and he's effective within the system. Have him restructuring Emmanuel Ogbah and Byron Jones, getting $18.5 million in cap savings there. Not really anyone to trade. And then I looked at some of the cap cuts. Keith and Carter, you have Alec Ingold, so you don't need both of them. Durham Smythe is almost $3.5 million in cap savings. You can get rid of him. You got Hunter Long. You got some other options there. Lester Cotton is $1 million with no cap penalty. You can dump him. And then Keon Crossan, $3.1 million in cap savings, 0 cap penalty. That's a guy you want to get rid of as well. So not really anyone significant getting cut from the roster. Not anyone really significant getting re-signed. Depending on what you decide with Tua and Tom Brady, that could open up for trades and other guys getting cut. But probably mostly trades and more restructuring. But it was hard to project what they're going to do in that sense. It's kind of like with Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers. You kind of got to assume that they're going to go with where the money makes the most sense right now. And where the money makes the most sense is that Tua's their quarterback, and that they'll find some sort of backup for him in some way, whether you just keep Skylar Thompson or you find somebody else on day 3 of the draft, or someone on a really cheap veteran contract. But the dollars and the cents are really hard to work out if you're trying to get Tom Brady at a $30 million cap hit when you're already $16 million over the cap. So you got to free up for one guy. You have to figure out a way to free up almost $50 million, which is not very easy to do. But with those moves, I was able to figure out a way to get them $10 million in spending cap, which is not a lot. They don't really have the cap flexibility. There's going to be a lot of post-June 1st things would have to happen for them to free up a lot of these cap space required to make some of these bigger moves that people are projecting them to make. Their team needs are very basic, though. The running back position, like we talked about, the tight end, is Hunter Long going to be your tight end moving forward? Probably. We'll see how that works out. Then you got offensive line. pretty much everywhere. You can afford to draft really any position on the offensive line. Connor Williams plays center. He could easily play guard, which is where he played his entire career in Dallas. And then gain some depth for the defensive backs. So you've got some interesting depth there on the front seven already with some draft picks that you've made in the last couple of years and some trades that you've made, some signings. So maybe focus more on the back end in terms of your team needs. But these could really all be settled come draft day, not necessarily in free agency. So this is where I, mock up some signings, but it's really difficult with $10 million. And do you want Tom Brady? Is Tom Brady the answer for the Miami Dolphins on a 1 to 2 year basis? And if so, then he's the only one that you're going to be bringing in free agency. You're going to have to free up so much cap space, like we said before, being $16 million over, needing at least $30 million at least, I would say, to get him. So you're at freeing up at least $47 million. You got draft picks you need to sign. So this is the decision that needs to be made almost immediately. They have to be making this decision right now. They have to be in the process of making this decision. They have to be in the process of working out who they need to restructure, who they would need to trade, when they would need to trade them. Would it have to be a post June 1st designation for the cap space? How would they navigate this horrendous salary cap situation while being able to have an actual full roster of players and being able to accommodate Tom Brady? You have to figure out what's going on with Tua Tagovailoa. So I'm not so sure that this place is as much of an option as people are projecting it to be at this point in time, unless there's some serious salary cap magic that's going to be worked out by the Dolphins between now and the time really when Brady needs to make the decision, which is going to be early on in free agency, because there's going to be other teams that have all this cap space that are going to be throwing absurd amounts of money at him. So nothing changes on their salary cap end from the free agency period, just because it's, what are we projecting here? What is there to project in terms of their free agency signings? I don't know. I had to keep $10 million handy to sign your draft picks and fill out the rest of the roster, because you need to have 53 guys under contract. And I think at the way that I worked it out, they're only at about 40 something, like low 40s. So they got to make use of that $10 million at least to get some guys to fill out the roster, because they do need impact players. And without a first round pick, they need to be very, very precise with their draft picks, because they do need starters. And I said, get offensive line, literally any position. Get the best offensive lineman on the board when you pick in the second round. Get the absolute best one, whether it's John Michael Schmitz, whether it's Cedric Van Pran, whether it's Andrew Voorhees, whether it's Luke Weipler, whether it's one of the tackles that fall maybe down the board a bit. You need to get them and just get 6-7 guys on the roster and put the best 5 on the field. It's that simple for them in that scenario. Then you want to look at getting a running back. There's some really good quality ones there. Some that might fall for you: Zach Charbonnet, Sean Tucker, Kenny McIntosh, Devin O'Shane. There's a lot of good quality guys that could come in and be number one running back. It's a pretty good running back class. I do like it. Blake Corum leaving it does weaken it a little bit. But I think on day 2 of the draft, there's going to be some good running backs there available for them to take to fill that need. And then, like I've been saying, focus on your depth. You don't want to be in the position you're in this year where a key player getting injured just collapses the entire system. Because if you lost an edge rusher to injury, you didn't really have a lot of options. If you lost one of your corners, didn't have a lot of options. If you lost one of your safeties, didn't have a lot of options. So you need to focus on building your depth, especially because your salary cap situation is in shambles. You've committed a lot of guaranteed money that you can't really get out of. And if you're bringing in Tom Brady, if you found a way to do it, then you really do need to focus on depth, because you're going to be losing a lot of your depth guys to cuts, to trades, and to not being able to re-sign them for the guys that were on your roster already. This is a team that is on the cusp of being really great, but they also, I think, have the least amount of room for error than most teams do that are on that level of about to be a contender. And there you have it. Miami Dolphins offseason prediction video. Make sure to thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave your comments in the comments section below. We worked out a couple scenarios there. Let me know what you think the best scenario is for the Miami Dolphins going forward. And I will see you guys with the next video next time.